we were doing with more camp, but we had a nice rhythm going where
Little
Admiral, height, me, Admiral, height, me, Admiral, height, Admiral.
Yeah.
Admiral again, Admiral a third time, and then we ran out of time.
No way.
Because he would have kept going. It was like I was invisible, like I wasn't even here. And he says to me during the break, well, you hardly ever jump in. And I speak, I never get a chance to jump in.
When the Admiral speaks, you're supposed to be quiet.
That's the thing.
Yeah,
Once you're trained up on
he
that,
was not adhere to that group.
that applies in civilian life.
Apparently it does. Apparently it applies to
I'm
civilian life.
guessing occasionally it does not apply at home. For the Admiral. I'm guessing that occasionally he doesn't get to talk at home.
And he didn't see it that way.
No, he was defending himself. He was fist on the table.
Yeah, you never say anything, Rob. You let Mike.
I don't get a chance.
That's not what he said during the break. He says if you could ask quality questions, he would have let you speak.
That's true. That is exactly what he said, too.
Good point.
He was just being kind.
Yeah, Rob has no experience asking questions.
I just push these buttons. I just push these buttons. That's all I do. Yeah.
Since you're from Maryland, what could you really add?
Me and Mooney. Me and Marilyn Mooney. Yeah. In studio with also the senior member of our crew, Michael Carl, former tax commissioner of the great state of West Virginia. Michael.
Great to be here.
Attorney at law, Lawrence Schultz.
Wonderful day. Good to be here. Back with everybody. Missed a week. Sorry about that, but
you sound so enthusiastic. Great to be here. Wonderful to be around all of you. And plucked from the confines of our audience, Mr. Ken Mattson. Kenny, how are you?
Good morning, gentlemen.
Yes. Gentlemen, we will do the intros, if we could. The Kentucky Derby is Saturday.
Yeah.
It kind of sneaks up on you, right? You don't even pay attention to it.
You haven't even bought a hat yet.
No.
it's the same as Mother's Day. That always sneaks up on me.
It's the Masters, and then next thing you know, here you are. So as I think paying tribute to the Kentucky Derby, the intros today will be in the theme
And we go a little something like this.
of the Kentucky Derby. In the first ever Friday 5 Derby race, we've got a handful of co-hosts looking to save face, so let's see which of them feels lucky as we run for the roses of old Kentucky. They're about to run as the 5 are on the track, and as they get ready, there's just no holding them back. In the far right gate position, Mike Carl's ready to be riding. He'll take to the whip like that horse is Joe Biden. Carl's waiting for the starter's pistol as he's forward nudging, but just inside of him, Mike Height's barely budging. And let me tell you about that Height, he's got quite a kick. And because of that, they say he's the odds-on pick. But this won't be like his other races. This time he's opposed, and with 2 lawyers challenging his win, I've proposed. If you look all the way left, Larry Schultz is in the post position. He's out there by himself, but that's his decision. The rest of the 5 are running middle to right, but Larry will run left all day and further left at night. Just to Larry's right is Ken Mattson in gate number 2. If there's one thing Ken can't stand, it's a horse with no shoe. Ken loves horses, but donkeys he don't need around, especially if Trump's riding that donkey right into the ground. And loading in last is our most middle horse. He'll run right between the left and the right all around this course. Stubblefield is his name, but he says just to call him Bill. Remember this, Admiral, there's only 2 things in the middle, yellow lines and roadkill. The starter's pistol has fired, and off they all go, with Mattson out quickly. He's the youngest, you know. But Carl's elbows are sharp, and Bill knows that better. And he'll enforce these race rules right down to the letter. Around the clubhouse turn, here they come down the stretch, with Mike Height to the right and Larry Schultz far left. How does this race end? I know that's got your head spinning. Well, this is West Virginia. So sorry, Larry, the guy to the left ain't winning.
Well done, Rob. Well done.
Unfortunately, few others are either.
Bill, did you want to jump in during the middle of that?
I started to 3 or 4 times, yes. But Mike's sharp elbows kept me from doing it.
There's your tribute to the Kentucky Derby. And as we begin issue number 1 in the Joe Ferretti telephone chair with the traditional leadoff position, here is Mr. Ken Mattson.
All right. Well, since I had my topics in a little late, I'm going to defer to my other panelists because a lot of mine overlap. So I'm going to go more local. So I know when we talk about national politics and finances, we always talk about, hey, how can we have to look out to our grandkids? What we're going to leave to them. So I'm going to go on the energy front. So what happens in West Virginia when the coal is all gone? This debate was brought up on another forum, and one of the local delegates said, they were kind of tired of all the solar panels. It's not, it's not conducive. It's not really great. It's an eyesore, et cetera. It's not reliable. So it brought up the fact that nuclear is the next best thing. So my question to the panelists is, and into Mike Height, since you don't maybe bring up the legislature, should West Virginia go nuclear, and where would we put it?
Oh, that's awesome. Should West Virginia go nuclear, and where would we put that extra 3 Mile Island reactor that they have laying around? Larry, let's start with you first.
I don't think West Virginia should go nuke. I don't particularly have a problem with solar farms. I'm really having a little bit of trouble digesting the notion that the home of mountaintop removal mining has a problem with the aesthetics of solar farms. Of course, we could fix both problems by putting the solar on the mountaintop removal sites. But this is not a state which has spent its time worried particularly about the quality of the water produced by the coal industry, about the quality of the air produced by the coal industry, or about the quality of the land that's left. In addition to those things, of course, we've had a big gas resurgence in West Virginia over the last 15 years. It's kind of died back now a little bit, but there was an awful lot of gas drilling. I've been reading lately that there are some 400,000 improperly capped wells just in the state of Pennsylvania that are leaking methane directly into the air. And there are actually people working in their gardens who have gotten sick and passed out because the soil is actually producing methane into their face. So I don't think the looks of solar bother me very much. And I don't think that nuclear is necessarily suited to West Virginia. For one thing, you need big lakes to cool those generators off. And unless you're going to build dams, God's already said there aren't going to be any lakes in West Virginia. We don't have any naturally occurring lakes in the whole state. And neither does Virginia, so they made Lake Anna and Smith Mountain Lake. One of those at least has a nuclear power plant next to it, and there's a warm side and a cold side. I've vacationed there. It's a nice place. It creeps me out a little bit, I got to say.
I remember when you came back from there, you were glowing, Larry. Mr. Stubblefield.
Yeah, every source of energy has its drawbacks. You mentioned...
Thank you, Bill. Mr. Height, it's your turn now.
I'm going to bring my agent in next time, Rob. Yeah, you mentioned leaking. The gas is a problem of leaking into aquifers, at least through the wells that are not sufficiently shielded. Nuclear is the problem with nuclear is we have no good disposal of the waste. Yucca Mountain was going to be one place we're going to dispose it, but there was a pushback from politically from both folks in that part of the country. Also, the railroads going back and forth. Nobody wanted the nuclear waste to go through their backyard. I think I think we're going to eventually evolve into more of a green energy. I think we're trying to force it too much, too fast, but that's the direction we're going to evolve to. I think the big clue for a lot of these, especially solar and wind, are going to be these batteries that can store up to 14 days plus, which we have not had in times past.
Mr. Carl.
Well, I think nuclear power would be a okay, part of the overall plan, and all the points made about what you need to cool it and maintain it and keep it safe. But the parts of West Virginia where it ought to go is planned to displace the coal mines once they're been mined out. And so that would be, but that'll take some doing. But it's a long-term issue, so we have, that's good. But I wouldn't have a problem generally with the idea of bringing nuclear power to West Virginia.
Delegate Height, you guys talked about this a little bit as well, and I believe this is a different technology than what we saw at 3 Mile Island, for instance.
It is, and my philosophy is all of the above approach. I don't foresee coal going away anytime soon. So when Ken says, when coal runs out, well, coal's not going to run out for a long, long time still. So I still think we're going to have coal-fired power plants for a long time. As it relates to nuclear, you're right. Nuclear has come a long way from the 3 Mile Island type nuclear plants, and even the one down around Lake Anna. You don't need as those huge bodies of water anymore, and most of them are what they call mini reactors, much smaller. Much less nuclear waste. But nuclear waste is always going to be one of the big issues and problems with nuclear power plants. So we would have to figure that out first. And as far as the topography of West Virginia, I think there's many places that you could put a nuclear power plant. Because of our topography, we can build dams and create large lakes in different areas, which may or may not be needed for the mini reactors. So I think there's a possibility for things like that. You also talked about the mountaintop mining and stuff like that. Well, these companies that do the mining, these coal companies, are required after they're finished mining to reclaim those areas. And many times what they're doing with those mountaintop mining areas is building major highways like they are down the King Coal Highway down in the southern part of the state. So you see, and I toured some of that this past session, and it's amazing to see some of these areas, these mountaintop, where they've cut these large mountains out and have reclaimed them. And I've seen a large high school built on top of one of them, along with large thoroughfares and stuff like that. It's not nearly as bad as what some people claim it is. So it's not the end of the world. And like I said, I'm all of the above type approach.
If I could pick up on the disposal again, what Mike and I both alluded to, in the case of nuclear disposal of nuclear waste material, that the engineering problems has been solved. There's not a difficulty there. The site is a perfect site for disposal. Yucca Mountain. It provides all the geographic protection you need, or geography.
Where is Yucca Mountain?
Geology in Nevada. In Nevada. The reason that we have not used Nevada or used Yucca Mountain is strictly political. And if you get around the political obstacles, we have no problem whatsoever in disposal of nuclear products.
Now, is Yucca Mountain, is that an old mine of some sort, maybe a copper mine or something?
No, it's not. It's just a mine with a lot of salt. So salt surrounded by granite. So if there should be a leakage, it would be absorbed by the salt, and then the granite overlying or encasing the salt would add secondary protection.
Gotcha.
You mentioned political, Bill, but the reason why there's any energy issues in this country is political.
Oh, exactly right. Yeah, but my point with Yucca Mountain, Harry Reid, when he was speaker, put a stop, said it would not go to Nevada. And I alluded a second ago with the railroads, there are a lot of folks backing him up because the material would be shipped from all points toward Yucca Mountain. They go through a lot of backyards. People are petrified over the thought of a train accident, the dispose of all of this, the waste.
Sure.
That could be well protected. I think it's strictly the rhetoric of fear that people stand away from it.
Mr. Mattson, back to you.
Well, we come down to look at the uproar of the local population in regards to what they're looking at, as in the solar panels. I don't want that in my backyard. So we talked about 3 Mile Island, but we also forgot about talking about Chernobyl. Now, I'm not saying Russia's technology is really advanced as ours, but nevertheless, you got the headwinds and everything else, and people who are going to be living around 5, 10, 15, 20 miles. If there is an incident, what the populations there, they're going to have even worse of an uproar that they have with a nuclear reactor than they have with solar panels on farmland. So,
yeah, that Chernobyl incident, by the way, was April 26. As that came in by, that was the anniversary of that 1986. Probably,
when it comes to solar panels, I know there's a lot of argument back and forth in Jefferson County about solar panels, but it seems to me in a lot of areas, like here in Berkeley County, where they're proposing a solar farm, it's being done on old brownfield spaces, like out at DuPont. And there's probably not a better use of those areas than something like that, because it's out of the public eye, and there's not a whole lot of other uses you can use in those areas. So I think there are places that it can be used effectively.
And also, Mike, you do not do deep excavation in DuPont. One of the big fears are that DuPont buried a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
In those days, it was not well documented where they buried it. DuPont was petrified, so the story goes, of going in and excavation and finding stuff that cost a lot of money for remediation.
Sure.
Mike, you said you're.
I mean, look at
go ahead, Kenny.
Look at the things we're finding at Aberdeen Proving Grounds to this day.
Yeah.
Yeah, you said you were all of the above, Mike, and I don't doubt your commitment to that. But a lot of people say that, but they say it as a way of being anti-green energy. I'm all of the above. But let me tell you about green energy. It doesn't exist without the subsidy to the federal government. And then they go on to disparage windmills and any other form of green energy that you can come up with while saying that I'm all of the above.
Well, and that's my position too. We shouldn't be giving subsidies out to energy sources that can't produce enough profit to do it on their own. So
we give subsidies to almost everything.
We do. A lot of these energy companies now, though, they're making green energy as part of their overall portfolio, and that's what the energy company themselves wants. I'm not for giving subsidies to them to do this, but if that's what they want as part of their portfolio, if they have a coal-fired plant over here and a gas-powered plant over there and a wind farm over here, and it's all part of their overall portfolio, they should be allowed to do it. We shouldn't have to subsidize it for them to do it, but if that's what they want, then they should be allowed to do that.
Well, but if you're going to take that policy specifically with green energy, then you should take it with everything consistently, and that includes your home mortgage. It's a subsidy when you get to deduct your interest on your mortgage. It's a subsidy when you get to deduct your real estate taxes that you pay on your mortgage. That's in effect a subsidy because it allows you to pay less taxes because of the purchase that you made.
A lot of the subsidies is all the politics of green energy, and it's good PR for private companies that say they promote green energy. But it's all ultimately the political, attraction of being for green energy.
Sure.
Both political and commercial.
And the manipulation of the tax code to affect behavior.
Oh, no.
Period, end of story, Mr. Tax Lawyer. Right? All right, Kenny, good job on the leadoff. Admiral, you're on the clock. And we'll be right back with the second point number 2, issue number 2. This segment of our show today brought to you in part by the Berkeley County Health Department's Quick Response Team, also by Hagerstown Ford and the Skinner Accident and Injury Lawyers at SkinnerWinds.com. This is Talk Radio, WRNR Martinsburg and TV 10. If you or someone you know suffers from the disease of addiction, help is available from the Berkeley County Quick Response Team with peer recovery coaches and support promptly to the homes of those who've recently experienced an overdose. This collective effort towards recovery brings resources and services to the community, including naloxone and treatment options. Call 304-267-1313 or visit the Berkeley County Recovery Resource Center at 800 Emmett Rouse Drive, Martinsburg. The Berkeley County Quick Response Team is funded through a DHHR grant with the Berkeley Morgan County Health Department.
vote. Sick of career politicians fattening their own wallets? I am too. This is Tom Willis. I'm running for West Virginia State Senate. I'm a U.S. Army Special Forces Green Beret, constitutional conservative, local business owner, and Christian family man. I'm pro-life, pro-gun, and pro-your West Virginia family values. Unlike my opponent, Duty Day Craig Blair, I will never vote for the chemical castration of gender-confused minors or to give $290 million of your taxpayer dollars to a woke Green New Deal DEI form energy company. Together, we can win. Please vote for me, Tom Willis, on May 14th.
Paid for by friends of Tom Willis.
West Virginians need strong conservative leaders we can count on to stand up and fight for our core values and protect our freedom. And Senate President Craig Blair is that conservative fighter. As Senate President, Craig Blair passed the largest tax cut in West Virginia history, putting more money back into the pockets of hardworking West Virginia families. And because of Craig Blair's leadership, West Virginia is one of the most pro-life states in the country. Senator Blair also protected our right to bear arms. That's why he was endorsed by West Virginians for life in the NRA. As the opioid crisis continues across our country, Craig Blair is fighting for stronger penalties against fentanyl distributors and drug dealers, and better access to addiction treatment for West Virginians. Let's keep Craig Blair fighting for our values and pushing West Virginia forward. Vote to re-elect Senate President Craig Blair on May 14th. Our pro-life, pro-gun, and pro-freedom voice in Charleston. Paid for by Republican State Leadership Committee. Not authorized by any candidate or candidates committee.
Conservative Patrick Morrissey had to work his way up, the son of a U.S. steelworker and a VA nurse. Now the liberal swamp attacks him because he fights for us. Chris Miller and More Capito are spending millions lying about Morrissey's conservative record. Did you know they are third-generation politicians? Who do you think they will fight for? Morrissey has defeated radical transgender policies, and he's fighting to keep men out of women's sports. Take it from female swimmer Riley Gaines.
This is an attorney general who has been on the forefront of not just protecting women's sports, but really protecting women, protecting parental rights, the safeguarding of children. So thank you to Attorney General Morrissey for his dedication and perseverance.
The swamp attacks Morrissey because he protects our kids. Morrissey's endorsed by conservative groups, West Virginians for Life, the NRA, the West Virginia Coal Association, the Farm Bureau, and West Virginia Sheriffs. Don't believe the swamp's lies. Morrissey's our proven conservative. Fighter, winner.
Paid for by Morrissey 2024.
I'm Mike Folk. I support the truth, so you're darn right I support this message.
I'm here interviewing voters for the upcoming primary. So, who are you voting for?
I'm voting for Blair. I love how he pockets my tax money by paying himself more than any senator in West Virginia history.
Nice. And you?
Oh, Blair for sure. I'm young and healthy, so I have no problem living in a state that ranks dead last in healthcare. Plus, he promised me a job 20 years ago.
And did he deliver?
Not at all.
Fabulous. And what about you?
I like Tom Willis. I also like expensive suits and how he got COVID shots into people's arms.
Who doesn't? There you have it. Real voices from real citizens reluctant to change.
This is Mike Folk, Republican for State Senate. That was a parody, but the current condition of our mountain state is no joke. We rank near the bottom in nearly every economic metric. Leadership has failed this district for the last 4 years. I invite you on May 14th to vote for change. Let's drain the swamp. It's time to folk things up in Charleston.
Paid for by the committee to elect Mike Folk, not Craig Blair's special interests.
How can you live more fully during a serious illness? Dottie tells how Hospice of the Panhandle helped her family.
My brother Speedy became the base commander after he had been in the Air Guard for a few years and then became a general. He was the type of guy that would take people under his wing. Speedy developed a form of brain cancer, and he ended up coming to Hospice of the Panhandle, and he wanted to be around his friends, and Hospice of the Panhandle made that possible. He had over 200 visitors when he was here, and one of Speedy's last wishes was to fly over the Shenandoah Valley, and Hospice of the Panhandle helped me make that possible for him. I don't think there was one person that didn't bend over backwards to make sure that my brother was comfortable, and they would ask me, "How are you doing?" Hospice of the Panhandle, thank you so much for treating us like family.
Live on with expert care from Hospice of the Panhandle. Learn more at hospiceotp.org or call 304-264-0406.
More Capito has a clear immigration plan.
Law enforcement will deport illegals, and fentanyl dealers will face life in prison.
A clear plan on taxes.
As governor, I'll cut the state income tax completely, and it will attract more companies and more jobs to West Virginia.
And More Capito wrote the bill banning puberty blockers for children, while Morrissey got rich lobbying for the puberty blocker companies. More Capito has a few words for Morrissey.
California's that way.
West Virginians need strong conservative leaders we can count on to stand up and fight for our core values and protect our freedom. And Senate President Craig Blair is that conservative fighter. As Senate President, Craig Blair passed the largest tax cut in West Virginia history, putting more money back into the pockets of hardworking West Virginia families. And because of Craig Blair's leadership, West Virginia is one of the most pro-life states in the country. Senator Blair also protected our right to bear arms. That's why he was endorsed by West Virginians for life in the NRA. As the opioid crisis continues across our country, Craig Blair is fighting for stronger penalties against fentanyl distributors and drug dealers, and better access to addiction treatment for West Virginians. Let's keep Craig Blair fighting for our values and pushing West Virginia forward. Vote to re-elect Senate President Craig Blair on May 14th. Our pro-life, pro-gun, and pro-freedom voice in Charleston. Paid for by Republican State Leadership Committee. Not authorized by any candidate or candidates committee.
I'm Katrina Stewart, and I get this question all the time. Who is Mike Stewart? Well, I want you to know my husband, Mike, not the tough prosecutor or candidate, but the man I fell in love with. He comes from a coal mining family and worked his way through college. He paid every dime of that tuition. He's been at my side for 30 plus years, and he works harder than anyone I've ever known. He's a great dad to our two amazing daughters, Isabella and Audrey, and our family is everything to him. If you want to know who Mike Stewart is, when I was diagnosed with bilateral breast cancer, he was the husband at my side at every appointment, every surgery, and every chemo. He was the dad who took care of our daughters when I couldn't and made every Christmas special. He's the guy that always fought for me and our family. That's the Mike Stewart I know. And that's the Mike Stewart you'll get as Attorney General.
Mike Stewart, a strong conservative leader for Attorney General. Go to makewvgreat.com to find out more. Paid for by Mike for WV Committee.
This is West Virginia Secretary of State Mac Warner, and I am a Republican candidate for governor. From the beginning of my campaign, I have focused on the issues that matter most to all West Virginians, and contrary to my opponents, refrained from the ugliness of all the negative ads. When you compare our resumes, you will quickly see that I am the candidate who best has the experience, wisdom, and sophistication to be your governor. I am the proven conservative who will use West Virginia values, faith, and leadership experience to aggressively attack the tough challenges that West Virginia families face every day. I am a veteran, a teacher, a husband, a father, and grandfather. I have lived a life serving others, and my passion and love for West Virginia is why being governor will be the pinnacle of my lifetime of public service. I am Mac Warner, and it has been an honor and privilege to be your Secretary of State. Now I would be honored to have your vote for governor on May 14th.
Paid for by Mac Warner for West Virginia.
Republican Wayne Clark, your delegate for West Virginia's 99th District. Income tax cuts for all West Virginians? Wayne delivered. School choice for kids and families? Wayne delivered. Protecting our kids from online predators? Wayne delivered. Republican Wayne Clark has worked to pass some of the most conservative policies in our state, protecting the rights of the unborn and our Second Amendment rights, bringing good-paying jobs for West Virginians. Vote to re-elect Wayne Clark in the Republican primary on May 14th. Paid for by Wayne Clark for West Virginia.
Hello, my name is Dottie Yost, and I am a candidate for magistrate in Berkeley County. In my current job, I am a patient advocate, so every day I stand up for patients' rights and make sure that the policy and procedure is followed. In my career, I have experienced many aspects of the law in working for the Public Defender's Office, the U.S. Attorney's Office, and for Cindy Gaither and Jeff Burcham. On May 14th, please vote for me, Dottie Yost, your advocate for justice for the office of magistrate.
Paid for by candidate.
I'm Kent Leonhardt, your Commissioner of Agriculture for the great state of West Virginia, and I'm here at the New River Gorge trying to make sure people understand the importance of what the Department of Agriculture does. West Virginia is the only state in the Chesapeake Bay region that's meeting the 2025 restoration goals. We want to make sure that we continue to have the clean waters and the beautiful forests that make West Virginia tourism so popular. I'm Kent Leonhardt, and I'm asking for your vote in the May primary of 2024.
Car accident? Get more with Mansion Ferretti. After a car accident, what does it mean when we say get more with Mansion Ferretti?
It means making the insurance company do what's right.
It means getting a powerful local law firm on your side, one with decades of experience.
And it means the peace of mind of never paying us a fee unless we get money for you. So if you've been injured,
get more with Mansion Ferretti. 304-264-8505.
During that break, Larry Schultz shaved his beard, and it grew back again.
Yeah. And now we're ready for another break.
Thanks for tuning in to our Welcome Back. We'll be back in 8 more minutes. This segment of the show brought to you by the Mansion Ferretti Law Offices, and still in Martinsburg. And you can find out more at wvjusticelawyers.com. Get more with Mansion Ferretti, also by CMA Honda. And I believe I turned 353 on the CRV this week. Rolling those miles, baby. We move on to issue number 2, and for that we go to the Admiral, Bill Stubblefield.
Rob, this past week, the three judges gave their decision regarding the 2 county commissioners, Krause and Jackson. The judges were unequivocal in their views. They were very emphatic that they felt that Jackson and Krause both had failed to fulfill their job while being reimbursed with their weekly paycheck. Matt Harvey, I think, has addressed it by saying it's a very pointed, a very strong decision. This raises several questions in my mind, though, and I'd like to kind of raise it with the panel. One, Krause said that she is, according to the Journal, she's changed from the Republican Party to the Mountain Party. And they're saying that her successor has to be a member of the Mountain Party. I'm surprised with that. I would have thought it'd be the party that she was elected from, which would have been the Republican Party. How is appointment made? How long will the appointment be? How's going to be the new election done? And what happens if under appeal, which I think Jackson is appealing the 3-judge decision, if that 3-judge decision is overturned, if they already have someone elected in the place, how does that play out? I don't think this story is over yet by a long shot. It's been very interesting, and I think it'll continue to be so. So the question to my colleagues is, do you agree with the decision, what we all know about it? And second, what's going to be the fallout from this decision?
Mr. Mattson, let's begin with you on the phone.
I totally agree with the decision. You're paid to do a job. You show up and do the job, whether you like it or not, or like the decisions that are coming up. You do your job. The people are paying their taxes for you to do that same job. And, and the fallout in regards to the ruling is that this is another thing where some politicians are gaming the system. So you got kicked out because you didn't do your job and you're mad, and now you're gaming the system and trying to get back onto the ballot. So, which I find kind of ironic, which is, that they have the gall to even try that. But hey, political positions can do that to some people. But I'll leave it to the rest of my more learned colleagues in regards to law to comment further.
Let me ask you part 2 of that. Can Krause switched her party to Mountain after being elected as a Republican. Should the replacement be from the Mountain Party or from the Republican Party? Your opinion on that?
I would say Republican Party. That's where most of these positions are, if someone has stepped down or for whatever means. Like if the sheriff stepped down, well, that's a little different. But county commissioner has to be from that magisterial district, and it has to be the party that the current person was already at. So you can't replace a county commissioner who's a Republican with a Democrat, even though they live in the same district.
But what if they switch their party affiliation to Democrat after being elected as a Republican? This is what Krause did, apparently, according to the Journal story. She switched her party to Mountain after being elected as a Republican while in office.
Oh, that brings up a whole different situation because we had that happen before with another state senator. So I guess it all comes down to what people think about that as in perception. So if that's the case, I thought maybe she just did it another way. But if she already got elected, changed her party, then I would say it's all good.
Mike Height, this seems like a law in need of existing.
Well, I'm pretty sure we addressed this last session, and if so, I'm pretty sure we passed a law saying that if you switch parties in the middle and then somebody has to be appointed, it is the party to which you were elected. Now, if that's the case, and that particular bill did pass, I don't know that it goes into effect on maybe July 1, and it could be January 1. So if that's the case, then it would refer back to the current law on the books, and therefore it is their current party, which means that she's correct. The replacement would have to come out of the Mountain Party because the law that we passed this past session hasn't gone into effect yet.
Mike, excuse me. I think the law you passed last time dealt with the executive committee and how the executive committee's role would be. This would be a different story. If now that which executive committee would they refer to? Would they refer to the Republican executive committee or the Mountain State? And that was not part of the bill.
No. I'm pretty sure the bill addressed which party the person had to come from. And I think the current law is that whatever party they're in when they are taken out of that position, that's the one. So if they switch after they've been elected, then from Republican to Democrat, you have to choose from a Democrat. But I think we changed that law this past session. So it comes down to, when does the law go into effect? A lot of times it's 90 days after passage. Sometimes it's effective immediately. This one, I'm thinking it was July 1 or January 1, and I'm not sure which. So it will depend on when it goes into effect.
Michael Carl.
Well, this whole case implicates all kinds of ambiguities, in terms of the timing. The party affiliation of replacement, the timing, when is it up for the next election or when that's, the election for that seat. But there's even more fundamental ambiguities, and that is the function of county commissioners. How is that different, say, from the function of legislators? Because legislators can not show up or can vote nay, all the time, and without any legal implications or violation. So now clearly they have an executive function as well, but there, the fact that it's a body, and the majority rules within the body implicates legislative principles, and so I think there's all kinds of problems and issues, ambiguities with this case, particularly in the timing that it happened.
So you think it potentially could be overturned on appeal?
Yes. Oh yeah, absolutely. I think there's a chance that it can be overturned because I think it's a unique, historically unique ruling.
Mr. Schultz?
Yeah,
Attorney at law.
I will make the rare comment that I agree very much with what Mike just said. I think that there's more to be had here. For example, they said, and I've never fully understood this, it is a 5-person county commission. 2 commissioners did not show up. So the other 3 vote, and if they all vote the same, it passes. And if they don't vote the same, it fails. It still depends on their votes.
But the problem with this particular case was that where they were coming to vote on a vacancy, so that 5 commissioners was down to 4, to 4, and then 2 weren't showing up to reinstate the 5th. So it became a huge problem.
And at that point, there has to be some kind of a remedy. I'm not sure that removal is the right one, but you still have the issue that Mike's talking about, where you are saying to people, you must show up, even if you don't listen to a word that's said. You sit there with your hands over your ears the entire time and vote no to every motion. If you do that, then you're fine. You haven't violated the law, and we'll wait for the next election to get rid of you if that's what the people want. But they may not want
I
those
think
decisions.
Commissioners Jackson and Krause's position on that, and since they wouldn't come on this show, I can't tell you, word of mouth is just what I've read from other sources, was that if they showed up, that meant there was a quorum, then the vote would take place. If they didn't vote, then by a 2-0 vote, as the other 2 commissioners were apparently in agreement on who the replacement might be, the person they didn't want would then be appointed. So the only way they felt they could stop that from happening was by not showing up and therefore ensuring no quorum, no meeting, no person appointed I didn't want to be appointed.
And I also think that this wasn't just them not showing up wasn't the violation, that there was more to the violations that the prosecuting attorney brought forth to them. It was why they weren't showing up, and the dereliction of duty, which is in statute why they can be removed, that they were found to be derelict in their duty, not just not showing up, but why they weren't showing up.
I was interested that they made a big point of saying, well, these commissioners continued to collect their paychecks, and it was like $8,800 apiece. That suggests to me, when the court talks about that if they'd simply said, I ain't going to be there, so don't pay me, we wouldn't be having this problem. And I got a feeling we would still have a very big problem, whether they paid them or not.
There would still have been a problem, and potentially a libelous one, as I understand it, because the county was unable to conduct full business during that time, and that was creating some issues that could have become part of a suit from local businesses that could not proceed with some of the things they were attempting to do, which includes expansion and getting the appropriate permits. This was what was explained to us by one business in particular on the show.
And was that with regard to this solar project or some other thing?
There was some other thing.
Yeah, some other thing.
Yeah. All right, Bill, final word comes back to you.
Summer Barrett, as she tends to do, sends us clarifying information, and she sent us the bill itself. But I've read the pertinent sentence 2 or 3 times. I still do not understand it, but let me read it.
We'll understand it less after.
Yeah, must be a person of the same political party with which the person holding the office immediately preceding the vacancy was affiliated at the time of the previous election of the office.
Well, that would seem to be indicating that it's the party you got elected by.
That's what it implies to me as well. Yeah,
that's the new bill.
That's a new bill.
But when
January 1 of 25 is when that kicks in.
Okay, so January 1, which means this particular case reverts back to the old law and not the new one.
Okay, points well taken. Okay.
All right, thank you, Bill.
Thanks, Summer.
On to issue number 3, and for that, Delegate Michael Haidt.
All right, I'm going to go more a national thing here. I'm going to talk about the protests, and we've had peaceful protests have been a part of our colleges and universities for over 60 years. So my question is, do protesters have the right to break other laws in order to exercise their First Amendment rights, like what is going on these college campuses?
One of the young ladies quoted in the news today from one of the college campuses made mention of the fact that there's genocide going on compared to a couple of broken windows. That's just not a big deal. So, is it a big deal? Michael Carl.
Well, absolutely. Exercise of your First Amendment right does not make you immune from the criminal laws that control our community, and whatever they are, and there's a lot of them, but rioting or destroying property are clear ones, and you can't do it, and that is. And if you get arrested for that, your First Amendment right is not being violated. It's ridiculous for anybody to claim that.
Mr. Stubblefield?
This is going to be the biggest obstacle Biden has to overcome. I think we've mentioned on this show 2 or 3 months ago that the Gaza, the Israel attack is going to energize a sector of our community, and Biden did not take steps to modify or to any way to mediate this, what's happening. And I think it's going to come back and bite him. Mike, your question has so many different aspects to look at it. We try to reduce it to black and white, and it's practically impossible. I think Mark Carl's exactly right. When there is vandalism involved, when there's a threat of life involved, that is far in excess of our freedom of speech. But where we have a protest where there is not vandalism and where there's not a threat of life, then that is covered under the First Amendment.
I disagree completely on the point about blocking the bridges. That is absolutely criminality, and it can't be transcended by saying, well, I'm exercising my First Amendment right to express my opinion on Israel and so forth.
I agree. Without a permit issued by the appropriate government entity, you should not be blocking it right away.
And part of why we have criminal laws is to not undermine the economic process that we've adopted in America, so that everybody has a chance to make a living. And when you block a bridge, you're undermining the economic rights, not just interests, but rights of other uninvolved Americans to make a living.
Mr. Schultz.
Yes. First of all, when someone commits an accident of some kind and blocks that very same highway, I sure would like to see that added to the total of damages that the person who caused the wreck has to pay. But we never go down to paying back the government for fixing the bridge.
Well, that would just raise and increase the issues in civil lawsuits, and that'd be great for lawyers on both sides.
It probably would be, but it's also a part of the same total justice idea we came up with. This problem, though, has been addressed in human history a long time ago, very successfully, by Mohandas Gandhi, and following him by Martin Luther King. And what they did, what they would have done at Columbia, everybody's sort of familiar with Columbia because, it happened in New York, so it's got to be front page news. And so at Columbia, they broke down the walls. They used heavy chains and bike locks to lock the doors shut once they were in there. Gandhi and King would have said, no, you don't break anything. You don't destroy anything. You go to the steps of this building that people in the university community use every single day, and you lay down on the steps. And when the police show up and tell you to leave, you say, sorry, you're not leaving. You're going to have to pick me up and carry me, and this is especially seems like it would be effective in my case. You're going to have to pick me up and carry me out to the parking lot and put me in the paddy wagon.
But Larry,
and when you have that sort of thing, now you've taken away from the other side of your argument all the complaints about violence and destruction. You are limiting ingress and egress. But of all the things you could do in that setting, including burning the building to the ground, you haven't done any of those permanently damaging things. You're just saying, I'm here and you're going to have to deal with me. They did this for years, and a lot of it was very, very successful right here in the United States of America when the King folks did it.
Bill, hold on to your response. Kenny Mattson hasn't gone yet. Ken?
Well, here's my sarcasm coming. So I cannot believe Marjorie Taylor Greene or Matt Gaetz is not at these jailhouses with these political prisoners trying to do their First Amendment rights, and they should be considered hostages. Now, that was my sarcasm. We had the same thing that happened on January 6th, pretty much, right? So, there's what everyone said. We had unlawful, I would say, breaking the laws with Rosa Parks, the Pettus Bridge. Exactly. There's a way of doing it, and there's a way of not doing it. When you break the law, so to the point where it's becoming a hassle towards the community, then sorry, you're going to get the ramifications of that. And my personal view is all those kids who broke not only their college laws or college student ethics, as well as the state laws, they should be expelled. And they should go back to their parents and tell them why they lost $200,000 or $165,000 at these Ivy League school payments. So that's it. You want to protest, fine, but how you do it, there's where the consequences come into place. If you want to make a statement, then make a statement. But when you break the law, then be prepared for the ramifications of breaking said law.
Bill?
Yeah, the example you use, Larry, of folks lying down on the steps, preventing people getting in. How does that differ from the bridge example that Mike Carl used?
Well, and for one thing, there's probably not a lot of commerce being carried out in the building. In other words, they're trading ideas, and this is a university, and it would stop, I guess, the guy who's delivering, creamer to the coffee thing inside there would stop him, but it's not stopping the ongoing society's work.
Well, and it's not stopping the ambulances that need to take people who are,
True.
about to die, need to go to the hospital. It's 10 trillion times less in degree of harming other people. This blocking the step at school.
And by the way, using these tactics, Mohandas Gandhi threw the Brits out of his country. They were running it, and now they don't run it anymore, which you may be sorry about or happy about. But they said, here's our plan, here's what we're doing, and nonviolent civil disobedience won the day.
And I think the other aspect of this we haven't mentioned yet is that there are some professionals at work here. This isn't just a couple of college students who suddenly decided that there was a Palestinian interest in their lives out of nowhere. There are professional agitators. I think it was eight. I think it was at Portland State. They were arrested at the library. None were students at the university. What's that tell you? What's going on? There's a disinformation campaign going on out there, and it's been a very effective one to create unrest in this country. And I think it's pretty easy to find out exactly who's behind this.
Yeah, and I think that's part of the problem. I think there are these outside agitators that have co-opted these peaceful protests and taken it to new levels, and the students sort of get caught up in the whole thing when the outside agitators come in and sort of take
some of them don't even know what they're protesting. I don't know if you've seen any of these interviews that are out there about what are you protesting? I don't know. They just said they needed people to come down here.
Well, or stop them saying, "Hey, so what's your sign mean?" And I don't know. I just picked it up over there, and
it's something to do.
A lot of times that's where the students get caught up in the wash of these professionals that come in are trying to sow discord. And I would have to agree with Larry. I think there's a huge difference in the civil disobedience of the 60s and what we're seeing today. So
yeah, there were a couple of major movements going on there. Civil rights movement, because if you take a look at what was going on around the country, especially south of the Mason-Dixon line, it was deadly. And then you had the Vietnam War. These were two things that Americans had direct interest in and changing. If you're 18 years old, a freshman at college, and your buddy just got drafted and sent to Vietnam and is now dead or maimed, you had an interest in protesting that you weren't the next person to go or that it didn't happen to somebody else, right? Same thing with civil rights. Your life has sucked to this point in this country, and there's got to be a change about it. When you look at what's going on with these interviews with the people protesting in this situation, by and large, it seems like most of the kids who are being interviewed don't know what the hell they're protesting.
And that has been shocking for me to see in the past 6 months, the level of anti-Semitism here in the United States. I never would have thought it would be to the level it is right now. And I wonder if a lot of these students really understand the whole issue of the Middle East and the Israeli-Arab conflict.
And go ahead, Kenny, real quick.
I don't think they do. I think a lot of them weren't even, students. We already said that, especially in New York. But I think a lot of their information is coming from outside means. I mean, outside as in the United States.
Yes.
To rile up these influential kids.
That was the point I was driving at, and it's so easy to do it now with social media. It's so much more efficient to do. But hey, this segment of the show brought to you by elder care attorney Danny Staggers in downtown Martinsburg. Get in touch with Danny today, 304-267-3915. All right, issue number 4, Larry Schultz, you're on the clock.
At Carter Myers Automotive, what we do today will tomorrow become what we've done. That's why Owners Just Do More no longer defines us. Our work is never done because what we live by doesn't have a finish line. We care. Our company of owners is moving lives forward every day by finding more ways to care before, during, and after your purchase. Because when you're happy, so are we. Carter Myers Automotive. Proud to be the owners who just care more.
Car accident? Get more with Mansion Ferretti. After a car accident, what does it mean when we say get more with Mansion Ferretti?
It means making the insurance company do what's right.
It means getting a powerful local law firm on your side, one with decades of experience.
And it means the peace of mind of never paying us a fee unless we get money for you. So if you've been injured,
get more with Mansion Ferretti. 304-264-8505.
Sick of career politicians fattening their own wallets? I am too. This is Tom Willis. I'm running for West Virginia State Senate. I'm a U.S. Army Special Forces Green Beret, constitutional conservative, local business owner, and Christian family man. I'm pro-life, pro-gun, and pro-your West Virginia family values. Unlike my opponent, Duty Day Craig Blair, I will never vote for the chemical castration of gender-confused minors or to give $290 million of your taxpayer dollars to a woke Green New Deal DEI form energy company. Together, we can win. Please vote for me, Tom Willis, on May 14th.
Paid for by friends of Tom Willis.
I'm Larry Hess, Berkeley County Assessor. I'm running for re-election and I'm asking for your support. In 2012, I was honored to be elected Berkeley County Assessor. Since elected, I have updated GIS mapping, online filing, scanned all personal property files, and recently added a full-time employee to monitor out-of-state tags. I have a 100% rating from the State Tax Department and am certified in all forms of their assessment practices. My experience is unique with over 38 years working in the assessor's office. Please get to know your candidates before you vote. I am the only candidate in this race with qualifications and experience. My opponent has no experience in this subject field. I'm Larry Hess. Thank you for your support, and it would be an honor to continue serving the citizens of Berkeley County. Vote Larry Hess, May 14th.
Paid for by candidate.
Crooked Craig Blair has been in office for 20 years. That's 20 years to deliver on a promise of prosperity for West Virginians. 20 years later, and these are the facts. 47th in education, 47th in economic growth, and dead last in healthcare. Promises not delivered in 20 years are no longer promises. They're lies. I'm Mike Folk, Republican candidate for State Senate. On May 14th, vote for real change. It's time to folk things up in Charleston. Let's drain the swamp.
Paid for by the committee to elect Mike Folk, not Craig Blair's special interests.
Mail-in elections, unsecure ballot boxes, and illegals casting votes. This might happen in other states, but here in West Virginia, on my watch, don't even think about it. I'm Ken Reed, and I'm running to be West Virginia's next Secretary of State.
For decades, I have built businesses from the ground up.
I've served in the West Virginia legislature and as a county commissioner. And so you can trust me to run safe and secure elections.
I'm Katrina Stewart, and I get this question all the time. Who is Mike Stewart? Well, I want you to know my husband, Mike, not the tough prosecutor or candidate, but the man I fell in love with. He comes from a coal mining family and worked his way through college. He paid every dime of that tuition. He's been at my side for 30 plus years, and he works harder than anyone I've ever known. He's a great dad to our two amazing daughters, Isabella and Audrey, and our family is everything to him. If you want to know who Mike Stewart is, when I was diagnosed with bilateral breast cancer, he was the husband at my side at every appointment, every surgery, and every chemo. He was the dad who took care of our daughters when I couldn't and made every Christmas special. He's the guy that always fought for me and our family. That's the Mike Stewart I know. And that's the Mike Stewart you'll get as Attorney General.
Mike Stewart, a strong conservative leader for Attorney General. Go to MakeWVGreat.com to find out more. Paid for by Mike for WV Committee.
I'm Chris Miller, and state government should run like a business. And a business can't grow without a business plan. Here's mine. Day one, we'll audit every dime. Might take a few days, but it'll save taxpayers millions. Day 2, start drug testing for welfare benefits. Day 3, get lawmakers in a room without lobbyists and tell them get rid of the income tax like Florida, Texas, and Tennessee to unleash West Virginia's economy. I'm Chris Miller. Politicians slow us down. That's why we need term limits and a businessman outsider ready to take on the establishment in both parties. Morrissey, Mack, and Moore Capito are just more of the same. I'm Chris Miller, and I'm your guy if you want different. I'm a pro-Trump conservative businessman and political outsider. I can't be bought. And if you elect me governor, I'll take on the insiders so government works for you.
Paid for by Miller for Governor.
Finally, West Virginia is moving in the right direction. As your West Virginia Senate President, Craig Blair has passed the most conservative legislative agenda in the nation. He has fought for our values like banning elective abortions, protecting our Second Amendment rights, and prevented boys from playing in girls' sports. Senator Craig Blair championed the largest tax cut in the history of our state. Craig Blair, a strong conservative leader. Promises made, promises kept. This election, vote for Republican Craig Blair for state Senate. Paid for by the committee to re-elect Craig Blair.
The W.B. Rockefeller Neuroscience Institute Martinsburg clinics have moved to a new location. Our RNI team has moved to a larger custom-designed suite on the third floor of the Spring Mills Medical Office Building at 61 Campus Drive. RNI teams now located in the new Spring Mills office include physical medicine and rehabilitation, neurosurgery, and neurology. We look forward to welcoming patients at this new location in Spring Mills. For more info, call 304-596-5038.
Do you have someone in a nursing home, or are you worried about somebody you love going into a nursing home? The law firm of Daniel Staggers can protect your assets. Call the law firm of Daniel Staggers today at 304-267-3915. The Daniel Staggers Law Firm does elder care law, estate planning, and special needs trusts for disabled children and family members. Visit the Daniel Staggers Law Firm for your initial free consultation at 133 East John Street in Martinsburg. The Daniel Staggers Law Firm, when you need asset protection for you or for a family member. This segment of our show today brought to you in part by elder care attorney Danny Staggers in Martinsburg, also by the committee to re-elect Craig Blair to the state Senate, and by Larry DeMarco and company at Century 21 Modern Realty Results. We are up to issue number 4, and Larry Schultz is on the clock. Larry.
Yeah, this is a bit of a follow-on to what we were just discussing, and it takes it another step, I guess. Could it be that many of the same conservatives who want jail for law-breaking pro-Palestinian college students will vote for the candidate who promises to pardon the January 6 convicts?
Hostages.
Right, who calls them hostages. and it just interests me to no end that that what used to be when I was a kid the party of law and order, often that slogan came up around the time of Nixon and before, when there were a lot of college protests about Vietnam and other things.
That's how Nixon got elected.
Yeah, and now we have a president who's talking about something that most everybody on this show despises, this sort of violent, groundbreaking protest where you're killing people and burning stuff up and breaking stuff down. And now the question is going to be, what will the party of law and order do if Donald Trump is elected? And what he's telling us he's going to do is pardon him. I can't fathom that he will do that, but I've learned not to make predictions about what that guy's going to do. So I just wonder what everybody thinks about that.
All right, let's begin on the phone with Ken Mattson, who is a self-proclaimed Trump sympathizer. Kenny, go right ahead.
Yeah. Well, the guy who's indicted on multiple charges and et cetera, and come to find out with the January 6th committee and some of the other things coming up, wants to pardon the people who have said they were guilty, admitted they were guilty, took a plea deal, et cetera, and are behind bars. And why should they be pardoned for doing something so heinous that hasn't been done since the 1700s? So, it's, are you patriotic when you do that to our own, national, capital? Or what else are you trying to do? Do you want authoritarianism, or are we a nation of laws? We'll find out next election. So, commute their sentence, possibly, depending on what their crimes were. There's some people that got caught up in the mix and were roaming around, but not doing anything other than roaming around. The guys that actually attacked police officers, they have video, destruction of property, et cetera, they should be behind bars. And that's my personal view of it. I'm a former law enforcement, a military police officer. And I see all these people talk about protect the blue if you don't support our officers, except when they're in the way, right? So you got to protect them all the time, or that protect the blue thing just doesn't really matter unless it's in your political benefit. So, no, I don't think you should pardon them. Those who committed violence, and that's pretty much it.
Billy?
Yeah, your question implies, Larry, that there's no hypocrisy in our politics, and our politics is based on hypocrisy. And I think the voters are live in a bubble, and I don't think folks see the relationship between what's going on with the pro-Palestinian college students and what happened on January the 6th. I think folks are seeing them as totally two separate issues, not related.
Mr. Height?
So I consider myself a middle of the road Republican. I'm not far right. I'm not in the center. And so I think the majority of Republicans like myself have always said that if they committed a crime, they should be prosecuted and jailed. If you can prove they've done that, they should be prosecuted and jailed. And there should be no commuting of sentence or letting them off. So I think we have been consistent the whole time in saying if they've committed a crime, if they assaulted officers, if they destroyed property, if they did any of those things, then yes, they should be prosecuted. So I find myself agreeing a lot of what Ken just said, that hold them accountable. But that's what we want to see on both sides. And I think we're seeing that with the protesters right now. I think it took way too long to get to that point, but we're seeing the protesters that have committed violent acts or have destroyed property, they're being held accountable for their actions right now, and we have no problem with the January 6th individuals being held accountable either.
Mr. Carl?
Well, I have to make it unanimous with the three Trump supporters' comments. I completely agree.
Wait a minute. I never said I was a Trump supporter.
Okay, I'm sorry. I did what I.
In fact, I don't think there were three of us even counting Mike.
Well, I agree with the three points of view. Okay. The justice needs to be even-handed, and I think Trump ought to, if he gets reelected, he certainly wouldn't say this before he's reelected. But to say that he reflects that there was some wrongdoing and he was part of that he's paid for, he's gone through it, and that the ones that, particularly the ones engaged in violence or property destruction should have to serve their time.
Comes back to you, Larry.
I just am interested to see, in other words, people say, and it's a pretty well agreed thing, what we talked about in the last segment, that you commit a crime, you should go to jail. But now we've got a guy running who isn't saying, I have nothing to say about that. He's saying, I'm going to pardon them. And how do you get yourself to the point, if you believe what you two gentlemen were just saying, which I think we all agree on it, of voting for someone who's going to do the one thing that you just said you don't want him to do?
I blame you for that. Because you're not giving me another choice. You're giving me sleepy grandpa.
Well,
so I don't have a choice other than to vote for Trump.
The whole idea, we might want to back off the whole idea of napping through important stuff. Now that we're watching Donald Trump sleep through his own trial. I mean,
that's not what he said. He said he was closing his eye. He said, I'm resting my beautiful blue eyes and I'm contemplating what they're saying in deep thought.
He was anti-woke.
Well, it's one more. Yeah, it's anti-woke. That's a good one. The jury will decide that along with a bunch of other stuff.
All right, we have to go on to issue number 5 now. And with that, Mr. Michael Carl.
Well, let's take it back to the earlier part of this show before I was even on the camera. What does it say about Moore Capito that he has welcomed and embraced Jim Justice's tenure as governor, And my suggested answer is that he's just a savvy politician and he knows how popular Justice is. And I hope it doesn't mean that he embraced Justice's call for a $500 billion tax increase on his first State of the State address. I'm quite comfortable that More Capito would not have supported that if it gotten to a vote.
And wouldn't you say, though, Mike, that the last 7 years of the state's economy have certainly outweighed that first year request for a tax increase?
Yeah. I mean, well, but that doesn't only because Justice changed policies and cooperated with the Republican legislative leadership. Have we had that success? It's not because of anything he did independently, or certainly not contrary to the legislature.
He adapted, and he learned.
Okay,
right?
give him credit for being that smart. Yeah, but he adapted to the legislative leadership.
Yes, Billy.
Yeah, I think a smart move on Moore's part, and I think that is a smart move on Justice's part. Both of them are working from a position of strength just now, and I think the fact that endorsing More Capito certainly is not going to hurt his relationship with the senator.
Mr. Schultz?
I tend to agree that More Capito looks around and he sees what is a pretty popular governor. And he says, why am I going to slap him? I want to get elected by the same people who voted for him. So even if they don't even hardly know each other, I mean, just taking it as pure politics, you would say, why am I going to attack this popular governor? I'm not going to do that. I may not like his policies. I'll propose other policies, but I'm not going to attack him. And so you play along.
Ken Madsen.
Popular guy.
I'm going to be a little more cynical. I think the writing was on the wall when Trump endorsed or backed Justice. Shelley Moore came out and endorsed Justice, so More Capito pretty much had to follow in line. So now everyone who's there has the Trump support. But Justice is a popular a governor, and even though everyone's going, well, he capitulated with leadership, and it's leadership that gets the credit. Well, we do that in national politics. Does Congress get the credit, or the Senate get the credit, or the ramifications of that decision? No, the president does. Same thing with the governor. He's still got to sign the bill, and he's got the bully pulpit. So, he's writing some good things, but also the governor also has a lot of baggage. So I think that's going to come into place, and why you endorse somebody that has this much baggage and is auctioning off the Greenbrier, et cetera, because of tax issues. So, but again, it's politics. So I think after the Trump endorsement, the dominoes were falling.
Delegate Michael Haidt.
I give the governor a lot of credit for adapting and changing parties and following the leadership of the legislature over the past 6 or 7 years. And he is a extremely popular individual in the state of West Virginia. So Moore seeking out that endorsement is political brilliance. I think they all sought out that endorsement. I think they all sought out the Trump endorsement. So the fact that he won that endorsement from Jim Justice speaks volumes maybe about his campaign and the direction it was going. And I think Justice is just like Trump in a lot of ways. They don't want to back somebody that they think is going to lose. So I think there came a point in this campaign where I think Justice and the Justice team saw that Capito was gaining momentum and said, if we back this horse, we'll look like winners as well. So I think the endorsement for More Capito was huge, just because this guy, the current governor, is extremely popular in West Virginia, and it means a whole lot.
May I ask the question?
Certainly.
Why is the governor so popular?
Yeah, Bill, I wish I could answer that. I really don't. I think people see him as he's going through all the tax troubles and stuff like that, and they see him as a true West Virginia, going through the same struggles. Well, not the same struggles, but going through struggles just like all of the other West Virginians, even though his struggles are on a much bigger playing field and much bigger numbers. They still see him going as struggles, and he comes off when he communicates to individuals in West Virginia as one of us.
And we make fun of Baby Dog, but I would argue that Baby Dog is part of that persona that he projects. It's relatable, with a love for animals and the like. So so I think whatever he is, he's been a very skilled politician.
Comes back to you. Go ahead, Doug.
Well, I'm sorry. In many ways, he is the absolute opposite of Kristi Noem.
Loves his dog.
He loves his dog, and his dog gets him elected, I believe.
Yeah.
And look,
you just don't understand life on the farm, Larry.
It's a cultural thing in West Virginia for people to be like Jim Justice is and to have power as well. Right. In other places, a guy who's like Jim Justice, people would be thinking, we ain't putting him in charge of nothing. But that's not how it works here. And so people like it. And, the average West Virginian doesn't spend a lot of time tied up in the tussles you all have in the legislature about this rate of taxes and that level of spending. They're more focused on a sort of cultural thing. I mean, if hee-haw were still on, Jim Justice would have a place to go. And because there is no hee-haw, he's got to continue in politics.
We come back to you, Mr. Carl.
Well, there's all interesting comments, but I really hate to the one point made that people real West Virginians identify with people who cheat on their taxes, won't pay their bills. I think that's not the real reason why he's popular. It's because a lot of West Virginians don't understand what a bum he is.
Wow. Jim, if you or Daryl's listening, I just want you to know those are the opinions of Mike Carl. The rest of us here just think you're a fine fellow. And at the end of that segment, we move on to closing thoughts, which today are brought to you by Larry DeMarco and Company at Century 21 Modern Realty Results. And you'll get 8 seconds apiece right after the break here. We'll start it off with Ken following these final moments.
Sick of career politicians fattening their own wallets? I am too. This is Tom Willis. I'm running for West Virginia State Senate. I'm a U.S. Army Special Forces Green Beret, constitutional conservative, local business owner, and Christian family man. I'm pro-life, pro-gun, and pro-your West Virginia family values. Unlike my opponent, Duty Day Craig Blair, I will never vote for the chemical castration of gender-confused minors or to give $290 million of your taxpayer dollars to a woke Green New Deal DEI form energy company. Together, we can win. Please vote for me, Tom Willis, on May 14th.
Paid for by friends of Tom Willis.
With 4 new car dealerships and 4 used car dealerships in 3 states, Parsons is the largest used car and fastest growing new car dealer in the tri-state area. Take Parsons Ford with huge savings on hundreds of new Fords, financing from 0%, Parsons' goal of financing for all, and Parsons' famous above-market trade-in allowances that help make Parsons #1 for used cars too. See why so many won't buy anywhere but Parsons Ford in Martinsburg. We became #1 by making you #1 first. Parsons.
Crooked Craig Blair has been in office for 20 years. That's 20 years to deliver on a promise of prosperity for West Virginians. 20 years later, and these are the facts. 47th in education, 47th in economic growth, and dead last in healthcare. Promises not delivered in 20 years are no longer promises. They're lies. I'm Mike Folk, Republican candidate for State Senate. On May 14th, vote for real change. It's time to folk things up in Charleston. Let's drain the swamp.
Paid for by the committee to elect Mike Folk, not Craig Blair's special interests.
Hi, Crescia Hornby here. Larry DeMarco, broker of Modern Realty Results, believes he has some of the best real estate agents in the Eastern Panhandle. Agents at Modern Realty Results have years of experience and knowledge of the local real estate market. Agents within the office work as a team to provide quality customer service. We strive to always ensure client satisfaction through handling every transaction with honesty and integrity, all while offering competitive rates. Modern Realty Results is veteran-owned and managed. Please call us at 262-4222, modernrealtyresults.com.
Final thoughts. We start with Ken Mattson via telephone.
Great show yesterday over Birth to 3 and the tubular epilepsy. Great job, Rob.
Thank you, Ken. Mr. Schultz.
Weather's cooling off. Get out there and get that yard work done. You've been skipping these last couple days.
Billy.
Do your homework and go out and vote.
Mr. Carl.
The Cards and the Pirates are tied for last place in National League Central, but the good news is they both play the teams with the worst records in the league this weekend.
Mr. Height, you have time this morning.
Wow. Congratulations to Steve Catlett, who was the Citizen of the Year this year.
Yeah, he only needed 3 seconds. How about that? Hey, crew, thank you very much. Thanks to our audience and to Colin McLaughlin, too. This is Talk Radio, WRNR Martinsburg and TV 10, and we'll talk to you again in 70 short hours.
It's 5.